Hi there, this is Catherine with Enfolded Heart Music. Today I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of the song Whispers of Beauty for the 16-string lyre. This video is intended for mostly for those who don't have a large musical background and who need someone just to kind of walk them through the song a little bit more slowly and just one particular part at a time. So if that's something that you would like, that this video is intended for you. Um, the structure of this video, I'm going to be doing the whole song in one video, and that's just so that you can have one video to go back to. You don't have to search for different parts of it. With that said, though, it's probably going to work a little bit better for you to pause at different parts of the video. I'm going to have it in 5 different parts, so to pause and work on whatever section that we're in before moving on to that next part. But that's up to you. Whatever works best for you. You'll be a better judge of the best way to do that certainly than I will. Um, the 5 different parts that I'm going to be doing it in. The first is just going to be a general overview. What's the structure of the piece, so we kind of know what we're working with. We'll also talk about the key that it's in, making sure that your strings are tuned correctly, those sorts of things. The second part is going to be looking at the left hand. It's very repetitive, and so once we have that down, it'll be quite a bit easier to just add that right hand over it. So we'll do that in the second part. And then the last 3 sections are going to be the 3 different parts of the melody, which are the 3 different parts of the right hand. We'll come to see that the part A and part B are actually repeated 3 times in the piece, and then part C is just played once, kind of as a bridge. And so once you've learned part A and part B, you have learned almost the entire song. So my hope, it's one of the reasons I picked this song to do first, because it's very repetitive. It's one that a lot of people seem to be very moved by. And so I thought that was a nice combination, that it's one people are familiar with, so it might be most helpful. And it's a simple piece in regards to its structure. So hopefully that'll be a little bit less overwhelming than perhaps some of you may have assumed that it is. So that's what we'll be doing. Overview, left hand, and then the last 3 will be right hand, and you'll have the piece ready to go. Before we jump into that, I do want to let you know that there is sheet music available now in 2 different places. The first is on the shop, where you can buy either the entire album or just the single piece of sheet music. Prices vary. It's either $1 or $1.30 for the different pieces. To access just that one song, it's a little bit hidden, so I want to make sure to mention this. If you go to the bottom of the page, you'll see it has all the songs listed, and on the right hand side you'll see these tiny little basket signs. If you click on that, it will add just that one song to your basket. So if you just want the sheet music for just Whispers of Beauty, it'll be that first song. You go all the way over to the right, click that basket, and it'll add that to your cart. So the shop, if you want a one-time purchase, that's where you can find that. If you would rather something that's a subscription design, I've recently created a Patreon where there's 3 different tiers, and the top 2 give you perpetual access to sheet music. So it just kind of depends on how much you think you're going to be using it to know which option is going to be a better fit for you. But I wanted to offer both so that it's as accessible as it can be. If you have any trouble with the technical part of that, accessing it, payments, once you have it downloaded, actually opening it up, please send me an email, and I'll put all the links in my email, all that in the description below. But please send me an email. Everyone should be able to access it, and so if you have any trouble with that, let me know, and I'll get that to you as soon as I can, which should be pretty quick. Okay, reasons that it may be a good idea for you to have the sheet music. 2 main reasons. The first is that I am going to be using it as a reference, just to communicate where I am, what sections we're working on, and that sort of thing. I'm sorry, if you can see, my cat is going a little bit crazy. Hopefully she'll calm down in a little bit. That's what's moving behind me. So I am going to be using this sheet music to, like I said, communicate with you where we're starting, the different sections, to point out where there's repetition, that sort of thing. That's the first reason. The second is that if you don't know how to read sheet music very well, but you want to learn, it might be a nice way to kind of exercise that skill in a way that is a little bit more fun than may otherwise be the case. I do have, in case you're not aware, I can kind of show you. I do have in each PDF both a clean copy of typical notation and also notation with the, you can see it here, with the note name and the octave under each note. I know that can be helpful for people, especially if you're not very, you don't have a lot of practice in reading sheet music. So I did include that. On each PDF, you'll have 2 different copies of the same song on that one PDF. So just so you know what's there. If you have any questions about that, again, just let me know in the comments or an email. I think that's it. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and start with part 1 and work our way through the piece. Here we go. Alrighty, so part 1 is looking at the overview of the piece. What is the structure of this piece? What may be a nice idea for you to do at this point is to pull up the video of the whole piece in one, listen to it again, and try and pay attention to the parts that are repeated. It's probably something that you noticed the first time around, but maybe not. Music is often a lot more repetitive than we think it is. So go ahead and listen to that, and if you have the sheet music, you can have that in front of you. I have my sheet music right here. And just take note of the 3 different parts that are in this piece. Okay? So once you've done that, if you've just paused and come back, or if you decided just to listen to me tell you what they are, I'm going to lay out these 3 pieces for you. Okay, so we have what I'm going to call part A. And I'm going to use the measure numbers from the copy that has the notation. So we're going to start, the first measure is actually at 113. It's a little bit funky, but I think that's probably the one that people who are inclined to watch this video are going to be using. So I'm going to use those numbers. You'll see those numbers on the left-hand side of the page. All the way on the left-hand side, you can see it says 113, and then I think, yep, 118, 123. So that number indicates the number of that measure on the far left. And then you count from that number over. So the first measure is 113, then 114, 115, 116, 117, and then we move to that second line and we see 118. So just so you know how to use that numeric system. Okay, so part A, it repeats 3 times. The first part, if you'll take note, starts at measure 113 and goes all the way until 128. The second time it repeats in exactly the same way, plus one little note. It starts again in measure 145 and goes to 160. And then the third time it plays is 201 to 207. So all 3 of those are essentially exactly the same. There is a tiny, tiny difference, which I'll point out, but it's not even a difference that you necessarily need to make if you don't want to. So that's part A. Then we have part B, which the first time it happens is right after part A, and that's going to be in measure 129. And it'll go from 129 to 144. It repeats again from 176 to 200, and then the last time from 208 to 222 at the very end of the song. And then the last part, part C, is only played once, it's only played once, and that is from measure 161 to 175. So for myself, I've found it helpful, especially as I'm doing this walkthrough, to mark those different pieces. Even just writing, little A, little B, little C, so that you have an idea of what we're going to be working through. Okay, so that's the general overall gist of the piece, how it's structured. I'm hoping that's a little bit of a relief for anyone who felt overwhelmed by the piece. So you'll recognize, my goodness, wow, once I learn these 3 parts, it's going to be pretty straightforward from there. I've learned essentially the whole piece. Okay. So that is what I wanted to talk about for this first part. I also want to make sure that we have our lyre tuned correctly. We are in, you'll see this at the top of your, on the first page of your sheet music, it says at the top here, 16 string lyre tuning is for A minor. Now, if any of you are familiar with the piano at all, C major is all white keys, right? The scale is, you never go to any of the black keys, the sharps or flats, there's no accidentals, is the language that's usually used. But this is not in a major key, it has a minor sound, which you may have already picked up on. And A is what we call the relative minor to C. C major, A minor. And in short, what that means is that they share the same number of sharps and flats, which for this key is 0. So just like in C major, you would normally just play all in the white notes starting on C. To play A minor, you play the same thing, but you start on an A. And because of the difference in intervals between those notes, it has a minor sound to it. So what that means for us is that when you start tuning your lyre, my lyre came in the key of G, which has one sharp, F sharp. I don't know if that's standard for lyres or not, but you want to make sure that there are no sharps and flats for any of your strings. So if you've got a 16 string lyre, which you'll need for this piece more or less, you can see I've listed underneath here at the top of the page how you should be tuning everything. And I just use a tuner from my phone, just a free app that will work just fine for our purposes. So obviously the letter indicates the note, the number indicates what octave we are in because it repeats. Excuse me. It goes from A all the way to G and then starts over. Okay. So for the 16 string lyre, the lowest note should be G, and then we go up from there starting at A. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So G to G. These strings over here are our copper strings. The higher ones are the steel strings. So your lowest copper string and your highest copper string should be both on G. Okay? The lowest one is G3, the highest one is G4. And then starting with your steel strings, we're going to start with A and then go up through the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So G to G again. Your low G again is that G4. Your higher G is a G5. And then the very highest note is an A5. So it's nice. We have 2 full octaves plus 1. Okay? So make sure you got that all set up. And once you do that, we'll go ahead and start part 2 with the left hand. Alrighty, we're back at part 2. You can see I've zoomed in a little bit so that you can see the strings as clearly as possible. It's still a little bit tough. I can see on my screen it's a little bit tough, but that's one of the reasons that having that sheet music hopefully will help us out. So let's take a look at this left hand. What's going on here? If you look at the sheet music, take note of the first 4 measures we're looking at where the left hand plays. It doesn't play in that first measure, so we're looking at measures 114 through 117. And hopefully you'll notice that they are exactly the same, which is very helpful for us. They're exactly the same. We've got 3 notes next to each other going up. Then that 4th note with it, which is an A, we skip a little bit and then come back down. So we're going from D to A, D to A, D to A. And then if we take a look at measure 18, it shifts down 1 string. So we started the last one at D, D4, and now we're looking at C4. And if you'll notice, it actually does the exact same thing. It's the exact same pattern with those 8th notes going up and down in a nice kind of flowing sense. And then in measure 18, 19, 20, 21, 121, we have that dotted half note. But that's just basically you're holding that string. You just let it ring for that measure. But the good news, and the reason I wanted to do the left hand just by itself, is because that is all the left hand does literally throughout the entire piece, except for the very last measure where it plays 2 notes rather than just one. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. Once we have this down, you've all of a sudden learned the left hand for this entire piece. So we're going to look at that first measure that the left hand comes in at, measure 114. We see that it starts on D4. So if we're starting from scratch, we know that the bottom is G, and then we'll just count up. So we have G3, A3, B3, C4, D4. So this is going to be the 5th string from the bottom. And what I would do is put your thumb on that string, your pointer finger on the string above, which is E4, that next note you'll be playing, your middle finger on F4, and then your ring finger on that first steel string, which is A4. These are the 4 notes that you're going to be playing. And try and just be in a comfortable position with this. It's going to feel a little awkward, especially if you don't have a lot of practice using your hands in this way. These are just muscles that we don't normally use. So what I want you to give a try, once you have those together, just try plucking each string going up and down. It doesn't matter the rhythm, just try and... Alright? If you start to feel stress in your hand, one thing that I notice that happens with myself is sometimes I may have the back of my hand too held tight here, and I'm just trying to move my fingers with the bottom of my hand kind of stuck to the instrument. You want to have it out a little bit farther so that you have a little bit more flexibility here, so it's kind of loose. Rather than just using your fingers, you want to be able to use your whole hand, right? Not just in here. You'll feel the strain in your hand here. You want to utilize the bottom part of your hand as well. So if you feel like you're just kind of cramped, just try and relax that and do it a little bit more comfortably. Make sure that your hand's not stuck to the instrument. It may be touching it, but what I mean by stuck is that it just has no capacity to move. So go ahead and again, try that again. The second thing that may cause some strain is if your pinky is doing something kind of weird. If it is like way out here, or if it's way curled up, if there's a lot of tension in your pinky, that tension is gonna spread to the rest of your hand. So try and have that pinky just kind of relaxed. I'm not always super great about this, I will admit, but just try and have that real relaxed. And try and go a little bit faster if you can. Just a nice steady. Okay, so that's the first part of the left hand. That's actually the first 4 measures. You can try and do that 4 times if you want. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is a movement that I use in a lot of my pieces, so as you work with this, you're practicing something that's going to be applicable to other pieces if that's something that you're interested in doing. Okay, I'll give you an alternative to the left hand in this piece in a moment. If you're not real comfortable being able to do that, I do want to give you a second option, depending on what your skill level is, so that you can still play the piece, even if you're not able to play it with this particular technical skill. Okay, so we just did the pattern starting on D in that first line. Now let's look at that second line starting on measure 118. I told you that it's the exact same thing, it's just bumped down 1 string. So that we were on D, we're going to bump it down to C, all right? Which is going to have a major sound to it. Try and practice that on the C, same thing. And just enjoy that it's a nice, just beautiful, kind of like a nice walk in the park kind of sound. Beautiful spring day. The little joys of life. And then when you can, once you've done that a little bit, which should be pretty straightforward since you've already done on the D, try to switch back and forth a little bit. Do 2 on the D, and then switch to the C. So we'll do that again. I think I kind of stopped a little short there. So 1, 2, and then C. You will notice that when I am switching, I don't play that bottom note. I don't play that D. I'm going to jump to the C. So D, E, F, A, back down, F, E, and then instead of playing D, we play C. Start the C sequence. C, D, E, G, back down, E, D, and then repeat the D again because we're going to switch back up. Etc. So I would play with that till you get real comfortable with that left hand. Now again, this is probably a point where you're going to stop the video and just work on that left hand. All right, getting as comfortable as you can. You don't need to be playing it super fast, just nice and relaxed. Okay, and again, enjoy the beauty of this contrast between kind of light and dark, major and minor. It's something I like to use a lot in pieces, and I think it's just very, very powerful. It's kind of like when it's cloudy outside and the sun comes through. You're just like, wow. It has a particular impact on us. So there's a way in which this is kind of resembled through the sound rather than visual aid of that light coming into the darkness. So practice that for a bit. Once you've got that, come back for the third part, which we will start with the right hand, and I'll give you at that point an alternative to the left hand. Okay, we are back for part 3. Again, I've kept it zoomed in. I'm going to do that probably for the rest until the very end, just so you can see as clearly as possible the lyre. I know, I'm looking at the screen right now, I know these higher strings are hard to see. I just can't get it any better than that. Excuse me. So we're going to start with adding that right hand in. So hopefully you've been practicing that left hand a little bit on the D. Nice and steady. And also the C. Maybe switching back and forth a little bit. Etc. Okay. And now we're going to start very slowly adding in the right hand. The alternative of the left hand before we jump quite into the right hand is to play instead of 4, well, I'll just show you. So instead of playing, it would to play the lowest note and the highest note. So you can kind of feel the rhythm of it, where it's and so rather than playing all the notes in between, you just play on those major beats. And then you switch to the C and G. So what I'm playing there is D and A, and C and G. So that may work better for some folks until your fingers are just more used to the activity. I'm not going to play it that way here because I think I'll mess up so much that it will be confusing. But I'll give an example in just a moment. But for the majority of it, I'll go ahead and stick with what's actually in the piece, just for clarity's sake. Okay, so I told you that part A, which is what we're going to be focusing on in this section starts at the beginning of the piece 113 and ends in 128, it looks like. Okay, and you'll notice that even within this particular section there is repetition. Like I said before, it's one of the, this is a sort of side note for anyone wanting to write music. A lot of times we undervalue the role of repetition. For the listener, there's a kind of joy in hearing something repeated because you're familiar with it. Now you can take this overboard and then it's just simply repetitive and kind of boring, but when there's a return to something familiar, we enjoy that. So you'll notice that in several of my pieces there is quite a bit of repetition, and it's something that it's not specific to my pieces whatsoever. A lot of pieces, or even most pieces, are like that. So even within the sections, you'll see a lot of repetition, which is great for those of us who are trying to learn the piece. So we're going to look at those first two measures. Let's just start there, because we're going to take this nice and slow. There's no rush. We're starting at 113, and we're going to do 113 and 114 since it's just that single note. We're starting on A, which is that first steel string. I'd use your thumb for this. And then we'll go up to D. You can count up. So we have A, B, C, D. Okay, so the D, which you'll use your pointer finger for, it's going to be on that fourth string. Then your middle finger is going to be on E, E5, excuse me, I haven't used that. So A4, D5, E5, and F5. And what I'd like for you to practice now is just to go up a little bit from each one. Just play one at a time. A, D, E, F. Just up. Really, really nice sound there. So once you get comfortable with that, if you're right-handed, this is probably more comfortable than what you've been trying to do with the left hand. Again, don't have your pinky, way out here like this. That's going to cause a lot of strain. Don't have it real curled up. You can even see the tension in my hand. See how it's all, that muscle's all curled up. I'm going to have it just nice, relaxed. Don't be afraid to come off the instrument. And I am not plucking real hard at this. Now that first little phrase there, all you're doing is going up, like we've been doing, A, D, E, F, and then coming down to the D. So let me walk that through again. A, D, E, F, E, D, D. So I'll do it all together slowly so you can hear it. Again. One more time. So I would practice that with the right hand before we move on. Now once you've got that, what I actually want you to just give a shot at is putting those two hands together, because like I said in my tips and suggestions video, I would spend more time with the hands together than separate. Hopefully you've got some level of comfort with that left hand, and so it can be a little bit just on autopilot. Okay. Now, if you'll see, there's rest in the left hand when the right hand comes in. So it's actually going to play on its own, and you'll know this is kind of a theme in this piece. It's going to play on its own, and then the left hand's going to come in. So they actually kind of trade off at the beginning. So let's go ahead and try just those first three measures. That's the first three measures. So that's just putting together what we've already worked on. Okay. So once you've got that, again, I'm just going straight through this, but pause wherever you need to, and just work these out. I just want to make sure that you kind of know where the strings are, the rhythm of it, just nice and slow. Okay. Okay, now we're going to do that second phrase. We're looking at starting at measure, we were at 1, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So we ended on a D with our 2, or our pointer finger. We're going to start with that D, but on our third finger, because we're going to need to make our way down. So use that middle finger, start with D. We're going to go from D to C, skip a string to A, and then we're going to go back up C, D, E. So I'm going to play it with the right rhythm so you can then copy. Again. Practice that a little bit and then try and combine the two, starting at the beginning. And then it repeats again, so and then we'll do that last part in just a minute. Okay, so part A, again, I'm playing just the right hand from 113 and going all the way until measure 122. Here we go. Okay, and then we'll add that last part before we throw in that left hand, and that will be part A. So the last part of this part A is starting on measure 124. Again, starting on a D. It's very similar to what we saw in measure, excuse me, 116. Very similar. So we're going to start at that D, coming down to the C, and then we have an A, and instead of skipping back up to the C, we actually go to the B for the first time. So D, C, A, B, C. I'll do that in a proper rhythm now. Again. I'm starting with my 3 on the D, my middle finger, and then using my pointer finger to play that B, and my middle finger to play the C again, and repeat that. So let's try and add that on. So we've got, now we're playing the entire part A, which goes from, again, measure 113 to 128. We're playing that all, the right hand for that whole section. So let's try and do that. So I would do that a couple times till you're pretty comfortable with that. And then before we move on, we've got to add that left hand in there. So let's go ahead and start. I'm gonna play both together. I would encourage you to just do this real slow. Take a look at the sheet music. It'll help guide you. And you'll notice that we're going to shift down to the C at measure 118. And I'll point that out as we go. So let's go real slow. Here we go. 2, 3. Switch here. Back up to D in the left hand. Down to C. That is part A. Okay, I'm going to do that again. Okay, that should be part A. I am going to show you before we close this section what it would sound like. Let's see if I can do it with that left hand in the more minimal form. So rather than 4 notes going up and down, we just have 2 notes. 1, 2, 1, 2. So let's see how that would sound. Sounds also very nice. So if that's something you prefer, I'd probably use your 1 and 3 with that. Might be a little bit more comfortable. But if you want to strengthen that 4, sorry, 3 is the middle finger, 4 is that ring finger. If you want to strengthen that ring finger, you could also practice just with those 2. Okay? All right, so go ahead and work on that, that part A. And we'll come back to that when we kind of put some of these parts together. Okay, we're back now to look at part B. Now this is a little bit trickier rhythmically. The reason that I say that is it kind of, part A had a little bit of this too, but it has what feels kind of like triplets in it. So this may be a little bit trickier. Again, I encourage you just to go slowly, be patient with yourself, and like I said before, just enjoy what you're able to play, because every part of this is really beautiful, even if it's extremely simple. And try and just wonder and enjoy playing each part of these. I know this particular video can feel very practicey in a bad sense, in a sense of narrowness and just trying to get your skills higher. But what I'm not speaking that is in the whole thing is to continue to have that spirit of wonder and play, and gratitude for the beauty of each little string. As cheesy as that may sound, it really makes a very big difference. To just try and enjoy the instrument and enjoy the things that you can play, and your skill will get better, and you'll be delighted and surprised as it improves at at the way that you can express beauty more and more intricately. So, okay, so we've looked at a big chunk of the piece, really. We've looked at measures 113 through 128, which again is the same as 2 other sections. We're looking at part B now, which is going to be from measures 129 until 144. Again, that left hand, you're gonna, if you take a look at that, it's again exactly the same. We're going from that D phrase and then switching down to the C, back up, etc. throughout this whole piece. So we're going to leave that be for a sec. We're going to do what I did with the first section, just walk through that right hand so we know what strings we're trying to play before we try and put those together. This may be a little bit trickier for me to do without the left hand, but we'll give it a shot. So let's go ahead and look at, we're going to start again at measure 129, and I just want to look at 129, 130, and 131. So we have A5, which is at the very top. It's our top string. And I would start with your middle finger. If I use numbers for the finger, it's 1 for the thumb, 2 for the pointer finger, 3 for the middle finger, 4 for the ring finger, and 5 for the pinky finger. That's just from some piano stuff, so I apologize if I kind of slip up on that. I'll try and not use that, but just so you know if I do what I'm referring to. So we're going to use that middle finger for that top A. And this phrase is going to go from A to G to F, back up to G and A. Then finish off with a little A to G, back up to A. So this whole phrase and those 3 measures is just these top 3 strings. So I'm going to go ahead and play that rhythmically, and then so you can hear it, and then I'll have encourage you to go ahead and spend some time doing that. Again. One more time. Sorry, that was a little bit off. So practice that. These are probably, if you're right-handed, going to be your strongest fingers, so it will probably feel fairly comfortable for you. And you'll notice that the left hand doesn't come in until that second measure, but we'll get to that in a moment. The second phrasing, once you've worked on the first phrasing, the second phrasing, which starts at measure 132, and it goes from 132 to 133, 134, and 135. Instead of starting on the A, it drops down one and starts at G. It goes from G5 to F5 to E, F, G. G is repeated. Excuse me, G is repeated. And then after a moment, it goes from F to G. So a very similar movement as we just did. We just went from A, and then you just move down. So I'll do that second phrase just by itself. One more time. Again, I'm using just these three fingers, thumb, pointer, and middle. Once you get those, try and put those two phrasings together. So we'll do measure 128 all the way through measure 135. Here we go. Try and do that several times. So we're just kind of extending it one phrase at a time. Once you have that down, you're going to do the third phrase, which is a very long one, but we're gonna take it real slow. So this one we started the first phrase on A, the second one on G, and as you may anticipate, the third one is going to start on F. Okay, so I'm starting on measure 137, and we're going to go all the way until the end of this section B. All right, we did A last time. We're doing B this time. So this is the third section of section B. So I'm just going to talk through the note names first, so you know that you're plucking the right string, and then I'll do it rhythmically for you so that you can hear that a little bit better. So starting on that F, then down to E, D, back up to E, back up to F, then we're going to skip down to D, and I'm going to use my 2 for this, my pointer finger. D, D, F, D, D, F, D, D, B, C, D, C. So a lot of D's to F's in this one. Okay, so let me do it a little bit more rhythmically for you, see if I can do this. I'm going to do that again. This is probably the most challenging rhythmic part when you put the left hand in, because it's kind of working on those off beats a little bit, which helps the feel of the piece, but it's a little bit trickier until you get it in your ear a little bit better. So again, we're going to start on that F. I'll try and do it a little bit slower. One more, a little bit cleaner for you. Okay, so let's go ahead and combine just the right hand in this whole section B. Again, starting back on measure 128, 129, and going all the way through 144. One more time for practice. Okay, once you get comfortable with that right hand a little bit, try and add that left hand in. Again, don't wait too long. You may actually find with this one it's a little bit easier to do left hand. You can feel the rhythms a little bit better. But again, like I've said many times before, try and work both of them at the same time, even if that's real slow. So let's see if we can do this real slow. And again, I'll try and call out when we shift from the D in the left hand to the C phrasing, and back up to the D. Okay, so just like in part A, part B starts with just the right hand. The left hand, we've just struck the C down here, but we won't count that because that's just sort of the ending of part A. So here we go, starting again on 129 and going through to 144. Switch here. Switch again. And final switch. So you notice that switch in the left hand, you play D, the D phrase all the way until measure 134. Then you play the C phrase all the way until measure 138. And then you play that all the way until measure 142. So I'm going to play this again for you. I'm going to try and do it a little bit slower. My muscle memory is a little bit strong on this particular piece. But just so you can get a feel for it, the sound of it in your ear. And so then you can practice as is good for you. So here we go, part B. Okay. Now once you've done that, I would go ahead and try and put part A and part B together. I will do that in a moment. And if you want to even try for it, I'll point this out a little bit later. But you'll notice that part A, the song goes A, B, and then back to A. There is only one slight change, which is in measure 150 to 151, and that's just adding that F5. That is added in just as a little extra kind of filler. I wouldn't worry about that at this point, but what I would work on right now, just to get, again, your comfort and flexibility, is just work on playing part A, part B, back to part A. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and try and do that myself slowly for you, so you can hear it together, how they connect to each other. And then we'll move on to part C in the next section of this video. And once we've done that, we have learned the whole piece actually, because then it's just a matter of playing part B again, and then part A and part B for a last time. So for right now, let's go ahead and just do A, B, A. And this will take us all the way from the beginning, which is measure 113, until measure 160, through 160. That's the chunk we're working on now. Okay, let's go ahead and put them together. We're going to do A, B, A. Here we go. Part B. A. Here's that F. Alright, we're going to stop there for this section of the video. Work on that as you need to, and then come back. We're going to do, after this, part C, and then start really kind of putting things together for the whole piece. Okay, we're back for part C. This is our third part, and once you learn this, you've learned all the notes for the piece, minus one tiny little extra little fluff note at the very end. And so it'll be just a matter of putting the pieces together once we have part C. So during this section, we're going to look at measures 161 through 175. And again, you'll notice a lot of repetition in this section in and of itself. Same thing with the left hand. We still have that D going up and down, and then switching to C. So we're going to leave that B for right now, and we're going to focus on just this right hand. We're going to start at measure excuse me, pardon me. So we're going to start measure 161 on C5. I noticed there is a typo in this section. If you bought the sheet music before I did this video, that note, it's the last note, which is marked as B4 in this measure. The measure starts C5, B4, A4. That should be a G4 instead of a B4. I apologize for that. It happens there, and also in measure 169 as well. That's it. Okay, just 169 and 161. Okay. So we're going to start in 161 with that right hand with our third finger, that middle finger on the C, which is going to be the third steel string. Okay. And it's going to go from C to B to A down to B. Now I typically, instead of going with 4 fingers, because there's a little bit of a jump, this is just kind of muscle memory, I just ended up using my 3 fingers and using the thumb for both the A4 and the G4. That G4 is that uppermost copper string. You don't have to use it that way. It may not be the most comfortable for me. It just sort of was. So I would say either using these 3 fingers, 1, 2, 3, and then going down and back up with the thumb, or using 4 fingers, starting with your ring finger. Whichever one's more comfortable for you. Okay, so again, we have C, B, A, B, back up to A, and then we have a bit of a jump up to D. That D is your 4th steel string. So I'm going to play in the proper rhythm now so you can hear it. Again. One more time. Okay. Pretty simple. That was measures 161, 162, and 163. Now we're going to do the next part, which is 164, 165, 166, and 167. So we ended on D5, and we're going to start on D5. So we ended with our, probably your pointer finger. I would now use your thumb at this section. Again, we're looking at measure 164. And just looking at what strings we're working with. We have D, E, F, G, which I would use your 2 for, G again, then your A, I'd use your middle finger, down to F using your pointer finger, and back up to G with your middle finger. So I'll play that rhythmically so you can hear that. Starting on D. Oop, I'm a little low. Here we go. Again. One more time. Oops, sorry. And then we'll put those two together. So we're going to play just the right hand from 161 all the way through 167. 161 to 167. Part C. Here we go. Starting on C. Oop, there we go. One more time. Okay, and then if you'll notice, as we keep going, we're now at 169, 169, 170, 171. That is exactly the same as what we've already played, which is why the typo is repeated right there. So let's try and put it together. It's again a kind of ABA structure. So we'll have the first part. Here we go. Second part. And then back to the first part. Alright, do that a couple of times before we do this last chunk of part C, which is going to go from measure, let's see, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, and 74. Just a nice little kind of tag at the end here. So again, we're going to start on that D. Fourth steel string up. 1, 2, 3, 4. It goes from D up to E, down to D, then C, B, and then I'm pretty sure it goes back up to a C. Let's see. Yes, back up to that C. So let's listen to it rhythmically. I would start with your pointer finger on that D. Excuse me. One more time. And then we try and add that in. Let's go ahead and play that right hand. Once you've practiced that a little bit, that right hand for that whole section C, just to get a bit of familiarity, and then we'll put the two hands together. So, measures 161 through 175 right hand. Awesome. Now let's put that left hand in and see where it changes. Again, this theme where the right hand starts and then the left hand comes in. It's the same thing we've seen in both parts A and parts B. So we're going to have our right hand start, and then only in that second measure, in measure 162, we'll see that left hand start coming in. And it'll start on that D. Let's try that again. Switch. Back again. And then it's back to C. I'll do that one more time for you. My hands are a little cold, so the left hand got a little stiff there. Here we go. Part C. All right. Take your time working on that. Before you stop and do that, though, let's just take a look at the rest of the piece. So we've seen that we went from part A to part B, then back to A, and then C. If we flip the page, we will see that in measure, let me see my markings here, in measure 176, we're going to go back to B, part B, and we'll go from B to A and back to B before we end the piece. Okay? I am going to do, well, I said I'd have 5 parts. I'm going to have a 6th extra part, which just helps kind of put some of this together. And I'm going to do those last 2 measures because they are tiny, tiny bit different. It's just a nice little ending phrase. And then we'll call it a day. Okay, so we are back for our last section, kind of plus section. I didn't anticipate doing 6, but I think this is very fitting to do it where we kind of practice going through all of it together real slow. But before we do that, I want to make sure we cover these last 2 measures, the very last 2 measures of the song. The only difference is that it's just kind of do a nice slowdown with the piece and have a chord at the end. That's it. Let's see. You know what? Let's just go ahead and look at just those 2 measures. We've noticed that the left hand is on that C4. Oh, I'm a little high. Here we go. And all that the right hand does, I'd use your middle finger. We've got that C, which is the 3rd string up. So all you're doing is playing that C once, and then you'll play a G4 and a C5 with your left hand C4 at the end. And you kind of, instead of doing it just all at once, which you can do, I like to kind of do a broken chord. So if we put those 2 together, very simply we have C, again, okay. Now I'm going to put that in the context of part B, with the ends, so you know how they transition together and link together. I'm going to start and measure 208 and go to the end. Here we go. Okay, I had a little bit of a mess up there, but the point was to see how they transition, and that's how they go there. Okay, so the last part is, of course, just to try and put it together. So let's see, again, let's review a little bit of how it goes if you haven't done this already. We're going to have part A, part B, back to part A. Then we have a bridge, part C. Before we go back to part B, A, B. So it's almost like an Oreo effect, except one is the right way Oreo, one's the wrong way Oreo. ABA, and then BAB. Okay, ABA, part C, our bridge, and then BAB. All right, so let's go ahead and put this together, and I'll point out when we have these transitions, and then you can listen if you want to the full video that's up to speed. This one's actually pretty close. I tend to go a little bit faster than I want to on some of the videos. This one was actually a pretty good pace. So let's go ahead and go through. You'll hear the transitions. Um, and again, just listen to that original video as well to hear them kind of as flawlessly as I can do it. And let's give it a go. That's the end of part A. Here we go to B. We'll hiccup there. Back to A. A little extra note there. Part C is coming up. Here we go. Part B. Part A. That's a slight difference right there. And then our last part B. Ending right here. There we are. Okay, you can see my face again. I hope that that was very helpful for you. Um, if you have any questions, of course, you're always welcome to reach out via comments or emails. If you'd like for me to do other songs in this kind of style, just a slow walkthrough, naming the notes, pointing out the different pieces to it, let me know. I'm not sure I'll be able to do all of them in regards to, just well, certainly not all of them, but even just specific requests. Some of them are a little bit tougher to do because they have a little bit more improv in some of them, so it'd be a little bit trickier. But there are a couple others that I could do that I'd be happy to do if something like this is helpful for folks. So just let me know. I like to do what's actually needed rather than just doing it sort of a just in case. So let me know if you have any questions or anything you'd like for me to add in these kind of videos or to point out. Let me know that also. It'd be good to have a better sense of the best way to do these. Again, I hope it's helpful for you. And I hope you enjoy your time with the lyre. I hope this is a help and not a frustration for you. Don't forget that wonder and that gratitude. It's a real important thing and real easy to lose. I understand that. So, anyways, thank you for those of you who are watching, who've offered support, and I hope it's a gift for everyone. God bless. Thank you so much.